It is almost 9 o'clock in the morning in Athens, and I'm going to do a morning update on what's going on in Ukraine. 9 o'clock Athens on a Friday means 9 o'clock on a Friday in Kiev, and 10 o'clock in the morning in Moscow. Once again, I preface this video by saying as the day progresses, a lot of things can change. I started yesterday's morning updates. I did 3 updates. And the first one, I was looking at the situation and thinking that this was going to be an operation, a limited operation to Donbass, to secure and safeguard Donbass after the shelling that took place on Thursday evening. And as the day progressed, my last update was a question that I posed to everybody: will Russia just safeguard the Donbass, or will they push further all the way to the Dnieper River? And I said that because we had news that came in midday Thursday that Crimean officials, authorities, had signaled that the canal in the north that was supplying water that was shut off by the Ukrainians would soon be reopened. So when Crimea ascended into the Russian Federation, the Ukraine government cut off their water supply, and the Crimean authorities had signaled yesterday, as the day progressed, that water supply would be reopened by the Russian military. So, the dynamics changed really, really fast. Within a couple of hours, we were talking about an operation limited to safeguarding the Donbass and creating a buffer zone to an operation that would go all the way to the Dnieper and reopen those water supplies to Crimea. Today, Friday morning, I think we all understand that this is a massive military operation that encompasses all of Ukraine, north, south, east, west. This is an absolutely astonishing military operation, and the speed with which it's being conducted, the precision with which it's being conducted. Right now, the most recent reports are 157 casualties. Of course, that number can go up, but that's an astonishingly low number. The latest reports are suggesting that the Russian military has pretty much rendered the Ukraine defenses null and void. The military has surrounded, from the latest reports that I get, once again, all of this could change as the day goes along, are that every major city in Ukraine is either on the way to or already surrounded, and the water has been turned on, as we talked about yesterday, in Crimea as well. The port cities are also being picked off one by one. But let's discuss some of the let's discuss what's on the table for today, and we'll wrap this video up. And by the way, all of this is being done without the destruction of communication lines, the electricity grid, the internet, none of that. Russia has pulled this off without targeting any of the water, any of the electricity, any of the internet, any of the mobile infrastructure, the communication infrastructure, none of it. None of it. They've left all of this 100% intact across the entire country. Yesterday you got a lot of fake news. I would say that 90% of all the videos that were posted on Twitter, for example, were videos that were plucked out of other battle scenarios. For example, there were a lot of videos that were showing combat, which were just taken from combat operations in Syria and stuff like that, and they were portrayed as taking place in Ukraine. Today, I believe that after a full 24 hours, that we're going to now start to get real videos posted on social media, and those videos, Telegram, Twitter, and those videos that are going to be posted today should be accurate, because we had an initial first day of a lot of fog of war and fake news, but the fact that all the communication lines and everything has been left intact, I think today you're just going to get a flood of real information and not psyops and bots and all of these things that took place when the operation was first got underway. So it's amazing that the Russians have not targeted any of the communications and electricity or any of that stuff. That's a very smart move. Now we're going to get a good window into what's happening. I mean, we'll have full transparency today as to what's going on. And a lot of that transparency is going to be from on the ground, people on the ground. Also, the fact that they didn't go after the electricity or anything like that was a good move, because when you go after the electricity grid, you run the risk of interrupting the operations of those grids in neighboring countries. For example, in countries like Poland or Romania or Hungary, and that could be a problem. You know, those types of scenarios could be seen as an act of war and could theoretically trigger Article 5. So, you know, the Russians didn't run the risk of taking out the electricity grids and having that spill over to neighboring countries. So anyway, that's the I want to get my phone here. That's the information. A quick wrap up of the information. Let's go into the two things that we should be looking at today. The first thing we should be looking at is Kiev. Now, Zelensky came out with a comment, and I'm going to read it to you. And that comment that he made in the early morning of Friday was this, and I quote, "I asked them, are you with us?" This is Zelensky. "Are you with us?" And he's talking about NATO, and he's speaking with NATO leaders, okay? And he said this, "I asked them, are you with us? They answered that they are with us, but they don't want to take us into the alliance. I asked 27 leaders if Ukraine will be in NATO. I asked them directly. All are afraid and did not respond. We were left by ourselves. Who is ready to go to war for us? Honestly, I don't see anybody. Who is ready to give Ukraine guarantees of NATO membership? Honestly, everybody is afraid." Those are direct quotes from Zelensky, who has made an announcement that he is in Kiev. The city is either about to be surrounded or is surrounded, is underway to be surrounded. But he said he's going to stay in the city. He is not going to leave the city and leave his post. But there you have the quote from Zelensky. Even to this day, there's a piece of him that still is hanging on to the myth and to the lie that NATO would enter, that Ukraine would enter NATO. And this was the big red line and the big lie. And it was this lie that prompted Zelensky to make an absolutely catastrophic and fatal mistake. And I talked about this on a video last week when I was walking around the city, and it was with regards to the Munich Security Council meeting, where Zelensky went to that meeting and he said that Ukraine will now go nuclear, and it's going to begin the process of obtaining nuclear weapons. And instead of having people at that conference, like Kamala Harris, who attended that conference, or Ursula von der Leyen, who was at that conference, or Schultz, who was at that conference, instead of having all those leaders come out with statements immediately saying, do not listen to Zelensky, Ukraine will never go nuclear, Zelensky is talking nonsense, he's desperate, he has no idea what he's talking about, do not listen to him. Instead of not coming out and making those statements right away, no one said anything. And so Zelensky spent that whole conference talking about Ukraine's right to obtain nuclear technology, and then asking countries that were at that Munich Security Council to give Ukraine money so that it could either move nuclear or that it could not go nuclear. So it was very, very bizarre statements that he was coming out with last week. But the leaders that were at Munich didn't rebuke those statements right away. They didn't tell him, shut the hell up. And that was a fatal mistake, because now we understand on Friday that the two things that prompted Russia to go into Ukraine, and they did not want to go into Ukraine. This was the last resort. But what pushed them over the edge were two things that happened. And that was the early morning Thursday shelling along with artillery rockets into the Donbass, signaling to Russia that the Ukraine military, instead of moving back their forces from the contact line, has decided to actually press forward. And the statements from Zelensky saying that Ukraine was going to go nuclear. Zelensky's probably wishing he never made those comments, but even today, Zelensky is still holding on to the hope that he's going to get into NATO. And I think he's now realizing, he should be realizing, that that is just not going to happen. And NATO is not going to come to Ukraine's defense. And so that leads me to the second point of what we should be looking out for today. And the first point being, keep an eye out on Kiev, keep an eye out on Zelensky, and let's see if Zelensky does decide to negotiate, to accept Ukraine neutrality, to surrender his post, I don't know, whatever it may be, and end this, or if the Russians move into Kiev. So that's what we're going to be on the lookout today. Let's see Zelensky's moves, and let's see if the Russians just decide to stay on the outskirts of the city and persuade Zelensky to end this, or if they decide to go in. Anyway, the second thing that we should be on the lookout, which I think is going to be happening very soon, or at least simultaneously with what's going on in Kiev, is the 60,000 troops on the contact line now on the Donbass. Now we know that the Donbass militia is moving. They're moving west, but they're moving slowly. But they are making progress. Last I heard, they moved about 10 kilometers into the contact line west, into where the Ukraine military is. And meanwhile, the Russian military is going to be moving north to south. And what you're going to have is the 60,000 troops, including the Azov battalion guys, the neo-Nazi battalion, that probably was the group that decided to continue to shell the Donbass. Anyway, all these troops, 60,000 of them, will be effectively surrounded. They'll be placed into what the Russian military refers to as a cauldron. And in that cauldron, they will be slowly cooked. They will be annihilated. They'll be given an option to either surrender or to be destroyed. And we're going to have to see what happens today. And we're going to have to see what decision they make. I imagine that the Azov battalion guys will take the route of fighting to the death. I imagine the regular Ukraine military, they're going to surrender and go home. That would be my take on it. So we're going to see, once that army is annihilated, those 60,000 troops in the east, once they're annihilated, you effectively have the destruction of the Ukraine ground forces as well. And I would imagine that's game over. And so we'll see those two things play out simultaneously. Maybe the destruction of those 60,000 troops in East Ukraine will prompt Zelensky to finally either give in or negotiate a peace, which will mean neutrality for Ukraine, or vice versa. Either Zelensky may say, you know what, it's over now that I see no one's coming to my rescue. And when he does that, maybe the 60,000 troops that are stationed in the east of Ukraine will give up their arms as well. So we'll see how all of that plays out. As the day goes along, everything can change. We just don't know. But that's the information that I have. Early morning in Athens, early morning Moscow time. And we'll see how everything plays out. We'll probably do a live today on the Duran as well. So keep an eye out for that post. TheDuran.locals.com. Take care, everybody.